everyone! I am so incredibly excited because we have Erin A. Craig in the house this evening, and she is going to be in conversation with Alexis Henderson. And if you love small town, magical, creepy, witchy amazingness, how do you not love that? And you are so beyond in the right place for tonight. Now, Erin has a new book out. You know, it's called Small Favors, but it is by no means a small book. It is beautiful and it is amazing and it is out in the world and everyone needs to read it because it came out this week. So it is hot off the presses, as they say. And Erin's name may sound very familiar to you because we actually read her book, House of Salt and Sorrow, for our book club, and it was a staff pick as well, and still is on a staff pick shelf. Mine. Yay! No bias whatsoever that this is going to be an amazing event. So before I pass it off, just a quick little intro onto our authors. Erin is the New York Times best-selling author of House of Salt and Sorrows, as I said, and after getting her BFA in theater design and production from the University of Michigan, she stage managed tragic operas filled with hunchbacks, seances, and murderous clowns. Then decided she wanted to write books that were just as spooky, which she most assuredly does. And an avid reader of embroidery and an embroidery enthusiast, a rabid basketball fan, and a collector of typewriters, Erin makes her home in Michigan with her husband and daughter. And Alexis is a speculative fiction writer with a penchant for dark fantasy, witchcraft, and cosmic horror. How do you not love that? She grew up in one of America's most haunted cities, Savannah, Georgia, which instilled her lifelong love of ghost stories. When she doesn't have her nose buried in a book, you can find her painting or watching horror movies with her feline familiar. Shout out to the feline familiars. I have mine as well as my roommate. They're the best in the world. And currently, Alexis resides in the sun-soaked marshland of Charleston, South Carolina. So y'all are in for such a treat. Just to give you the house rules, there is the chat section to the right-hand side. Hello, everyone. We will be in there. Hello. Book recs. And then if you have any questions, I highly encourage you to ask them. I already see we have our first question, which is yay! But if you look down below, it says ask a question. If you click that magical button, that is indeed where you can submit your question. The best part about events is that you get to pry the mysterious place of the author's mind. Sure, you ask those questions. And then also, most importantly, this is a new book out into the world, so make sure you go and support Small Favors as well as the Year of the Witching. And if you click on purchase books down below, you can purchase both of the author's books and get not even a signed, nay, but a personalized book plate as well. And on that note, I'm going to kick it off to Alexis and Erin, and I will see everyone at the end of the event. Have a good one.
Thank you. Alexis, thank you so much for coming to play with me. I absolutely loved Year of the Witching. It was one of my absolutely favorite books last year, and like, I could talk about it for days. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this event with you. I'm just like so excited. I feel like we're long overdue to do an event together. It's a huge honor to be talking to you today. I have so many things I actually want to ask you.
Yes.
One thing that like I just heard from the top, it's like on the top of my head, is that you're in Michigan, which I think I knew. But what I'm not sure you know is I was actually born in Michigan as well.
Where at?
Lansing, Michigan.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wait, are you Michigan or state?
Okay, so I have one parent from Michigan State and one from University of Michigan, so I know better.
House divided.
Exactly. But I was reminded of Michigan while reading this book, like the forest and the woods surrounding Indieville. Just it immediately kind of took me there, and I wondered if that was a direct inspiration.
It wasn't exactly Michigan. Like I set out, so I was talking to somebody about it yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, you must have like set out to write this like in America. It's so different from House of Salt and Sorrows." And I started laughing about it because originally I tried really, really hard to set it in like the Black Forest in Germany, and I had like Lederhosen, and it was a thing, and it did not work at all. And I realized I was like, I just did like House has a very European feel to it. It's all kind of, you know, fantasy land, that it's very the UK, and there's kind of, you know, revolutionary France and everything going off in Pelage and wherever. And when I started trying to figure out like who the Rumpelstiltskin characters would be and like what they would be like, I was like, I don't really want to do like the Straw into Gold, because that feels too done, obviously, by the Brother Grimms. And so I was thinking, like, what other golden things would there be? And I was like, oh, bees and honey, and they make honey, and that's the kind of spinning straw into gold and loveliness. And so I started just like researching wildflowers, because I don't know how my brain works a lot of times, but I was really intrigued by Colorado. And so I had been there a couple of years ago when I was touring as a stage manager, and I loved the mountains, and I was like, oh, this would be great. They could be very isolating, and the trees and the forest, and there's great wildflowers out there. And so the bees would be happy. And I liked I wanted to set it as close to modern day times as we could get, but where it would still feel like this is a very isolated community. I didn't want to do like all of the research for like puritanical America and colonial and everything. And I was like, I mean, like after the gold rush, like there was so many territories that still weren't settled. Like they could still have like martial law and, you know, take all these terrible things into their own hands, and we could have the whole like vigilante justice believable. So it's like 1880s Colorado. And then I was trying to be very specific, and I had like references to like the Donner Party and like Roanoke, Virginia, and all these things. And my agent was like, maybe we don't like act, maybe it's just very vague the entire time. So like it's any creepy forest land, but in my heart it's Colorado.
It's so interesting to me. I wonder if it's just a thing where it's like your nearest forest. Like for me, it's Michigan, because I grew up on the edge.
The reference point.
Yeah, so it's just the reference point, because when I was reading, despite the mountains, I was like, no, I'm feeling Michigan. I probably also buy because I knew that you were from there. But that's so cool, though. I had a similar experience with the Year of the Witching, where I thought about placing it in a real place, and my agent at the time was like, no, we're not doing that. So it's interesting to hear you say that. The same, yeah.
Well, and I've got a question for you, because I loved it. Like yours, like just oozed puritanical colonialism. Just, it was so brilliant. Like how, when you're writing historical horror, because it did feel like, I felt like it could be any New England town. Like that's where I kept setting it. I don't know if that was where it was supposed to be, but like in my head I was like, oh, this is very like somewhere Massachusetts, maybe like even like as far south as like Virginia or someplace. Like how do you choose what to keep as like fact, and what do you just totally like, I'm just gonna make witches in the woods and do magic and all of that stuff?
I have a hard time. I feel like I'm always winging it. I'm playing by ear almost. So if something sounds too specific, either I would cut it or my editor agent would. And I don't know, I think, and I guess I can be critiqued for this, but I almost put aesthetics first. So if it looks right, it feels right, it sounds right, then I go with it.
Absolutely.
I think it's kind of a great way to have that those types of worlds. Just like in Small Favors, one of the things I love, it's like it straddles the line between realism and fantasy, and you just almost can't quite place it exactly as you're reading. At least, yeah, like, and it feels kind of timeless in a way. I had that feeling like while reading your book, and I love that. I think that's like a cornerstone almost about kind of like folky, horror-y, like magic. Yeah, and I love those types of worlds.
Oh, same, absolutely.
But doesn't it feel like walking a tightrope though? Because it can be hard. I feel like when I read your book, it's like it feels effortless, but I know that it's so hard to make sure that like nothing is it's like too set into our world or our time, but also at the same time kind of grounding it so it feels familiar. It's like it's kind of both.
That was one of the things I loved like doing the research for, because when I went to try to like who, and I'm going to try to be very, very good about not doing any spoilers, but so it is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. So we've got, creatures that do bargains and things for favors. And when I was trying to like think of like how to create those creatures, now that I had said it in like this weird American West fantasy, but not land, I was like, well, I don't want to do imps because imps they just feel very European. And so I started like looking through like all the American cryptozoology stuff, and I was like, oh, I can do Bigfoot. This would be great. Yes. I'll do a Bigfoot book. And I was like, no, Erin, you don't want to write a Bigfoot book. And so I started, I would, it would be so much fun.
Book 3?
Right, yes. And so I started looking at like all the different like monsters and everything that exist in America. And I loved having like, there were so many examples of like creatures that should exist in myth and imagination and everything, but people swear they see them. And like, this is that weird. And I feel like with forests, you can get away with having, you know, the creatures in the woods because there's so much of, you know, the forests and everything that haven't been discovered, and they're always discovering new animals and stuff. So like, why couldn't these awful beings exist within the woods? And one of the fun facts, I kind of merged Mothman from Pennsylvania with the Dark Watchers in California. I really like their name, so I kind of might have kept that. But they're these like really tall figures that stand on like Highway 1 throughout California, and they just stand there and they watch things. And I was like, oh, that's so creepy. I love that. And they're like supposed to be like custodians of the land or something. And so then I started looking at I went down this like ridiculous Mothman hole one night on Wikipedia. And like, there's so many conspiracy theories about him. And like, whenever he shows up, you know, like obviously the bridge collapse in Pennsylvania, but like all these terrible things happen. And they're like, oh, Mothman was seen at 9/11 and like all these different places. I was like, well, what if it was like that, but like the Dark Watchers? And when I was doing more stuff on the Dark Watchers, John Steinbeck actually says he saw them. And like, he wrote a short story about it, about the experience. And I was like, well, this is kind of cool because it feels real. And like John Steinbeck says they exist. So like, who's going to argue with him? Well, I mean, he's dead, but like, who would argue with that?
I'm not going to argue with him.
But I thought that was so fascinating. Like, you know, a writer who that's his whole thing is creating things, but like he's seeing these mythic beasts for real. And I was like, oh, this would be fun to write about. So they were born.
So terrifying. So terrifying.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Then they wear like really big, like brimmed hats and like the cloaks, and they just like hang out on the cliffs and like watch. And it's like, oh
no.
That's exactly what I'm going to see, like driving down the highway.
Like your book scared me enough, and now that I have this, I'm like, okay, so highways 2, Forest and safe. Also, highways.
Stay away from Highway 1.
Oh man. Yeah, I think what also I love about your book so much is like there is this like the dark, the sinister, the creepy, but there's so much heart in this book too. I loved the relationship that Ellery had with her family. I think I was especially drawn to that because, you know, in my book, The Year of the Witching, my main character kind of has a real distance and some real hard feelings between her and the rest of her family. But in this book, I felt this connectedness that Ellery had with her family. And I really love that. And it's like in the same House of Salt and Sorrows too, like you do such a good job exploring family dynamics and particularly sister dynamics. And it's not something I see much, but I wondered if you could like talk more about that and kind of like what draws you in that direction and kind of how you go about adding so much depth to the relationships that you have in your books between family members.
I have a sister. I have a younger sister. She's about almost 4 years younger than me. She just had a birthday. And she and I were always very close as kids. And she was we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. And then there's ways where like totally 180, like she cannot stand anything terrifying. And so she puts on a really, really brave face and will like read my books and then have nightmares about them for weeks. But like we always like did things together as kids. And I grew up in Texas. And we lived in a log cabin as you do in Texas, in the middle of a cotton field. And like, we had no neighbors. And so like, we were each other's playmates. And so like, we've always been very, very close. When we moved to Michigan, later on when, kind of preteen, teen years, you know, that kind of continued on, and she ended up actually going to the same, I was at Michigan, and she also went to Michigan, and we ended up being in the same dorm for my senior year, her freshman year, which was really fun. And then, like, you know, like people grow apart, not that we've grown apart, but like physically have grown apart. Like she was out in Boston for a while, and I was bouncing around the country as a stage manager. But we always had that closeness. Like I always could call her up and, you know, talk to her and tell her about the day and, you know, just like shoot the breeze. And it wasn't ever like there was, you know, 1,000 miles separating us. So I've always had a very close relationship with her. And I always would beg my mom for an older brother because that's really easy to do. But I really wanted an older brother because I don't know why. Lots of fictional babysitter club books or something. And so I realized like there's a lot of people that don't have, you know, necessarily good relationships with their family. So I really like having like a positive one in House of Salt and Sorrows. And then it was fun to explore like the reverse of that, like have some relationships that are very close and then some that are not, and for not like necessarily explicable reasons. And I kind of liked keeping that open with Ellery's relationship with her twin brother, Sam. Like they were very close as children and then they just did it. And some people are terrible and Sam is just the worst. Like without any spoiler, Sam is just the worst. And so it was fun to kind of explore the reverse of kind of the relationship that, you know, Annalie and all of her sisters had with Sam, because it was like, what would that be like to not have that relationship?
Right.
That was fun.
I think it's like especially hard, like that brother-sister tension. And it's something, again, that I almost feel like maybe it's just like a sibling thing in general. You don't often see complex relationships, or maybe I'm just not seeing as much as I want to within books. And so it was interesting to see kind of the reverse of that and the tension between those two. It's kind of like heartbreaking because you feel like they're destined to have this kind of closeness that,
and they should for all intents and purposes. And it was fun to see, like, look, what is it like when you have siblings who aren't like you, or family members who, you know, aren't necessarily like you and don't have the same, you know, philosophies in life and everything. And it was fun to explore, like, someone who should be so close, like you were born seconds after each other, you were raised in the exact same household, like how do you turn out so differently? And that was really fun to see how miserable we can make Sam.
Poor Sam.
So I had a question for you, because I feel like with your book, like I loved all of the details and like the world building and the aesthetics, and like I was in Bethel the entire time I was in the book, and like the Darkwood, obviously when we go to the Darkwood, but like I was there. What was like the best, or like the best piece of research that you did for your books, like with world creation, or like the weirdest thing you had to look up? Like, was there any like research that kind of stood out for you?
Yeah, I did a lot of research into witchcraft, and then I ended up kind of like dabbling. I think I was just gonna practice what you preach mentality. I was like, I should do a little witchcraft. I'm gonna write about it for the next 3 years or more. And so I think dabbling in spell work was probably the most like interesting and intimidating part of my research process, if you can even call it that. I probably would have ended up dabbling anyway, but so that was pretty fun. At one point, my dad thought that I cursed the house because I was like casting all these spells in my bedroom, and at the time I lived with them, and then like books started like, they say flying off shelves, but they started falling with no explanation when nobody was in the room.
Oh my gosh.
A painting that fell, and like it took out a bunch of like breakables, and glass was everywhere. And so I was like banned from doing any witchy stuff for a while, and I had to like sage the house. It was a whole thing. We lost Erin's video. Are you still there, Erin?
Oh, I am. Let me see. I see you. Do you hear me?
I hear you. So that's
okay.
Good.
I don't.
We might need...
My thing is on. I've got the light. Let me see.
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Okay. Don't know what happened. I see myself and I see you, but it says waiting for mysterious.
Everyone else.
Galaxy to Okay. Am I back? Okay.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's just from my end. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I got a weird like little thing on my screen.
Okay. I have a very nice profile image of you, right? So like to look at. If I miss like a hand gesture or something, that's why I like lost video.
No worries.
Yeah. So yeah,
so things flying off the shelves. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, things were
terrifying.
It was scary for a little while. Oh, now I see you again. Okay. Yeah. So it was touch and go for a little while, but I think that it was kind of a cool experience for me because I felt like my character was learning more about her faith and her practice of witchcraft, and at the same time, I was doing the same. So it felt like we were kind of going hand in hand, kind of figuring things out. Yeah, and I wasn't far off of her age when I was doing that. I think I was probably like 19, 20 when I first got the idea for the Year of the Witching. And I think in an earlier draft, the manual was like 18. So we were close. We were very close in age. And it felt like I had just kind of created a friend for myself. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you, though? I want to know, okay, I had this question. I'm so fascinated by beekeeping. And I learned so much reading your book, and it was wonderful. But I was wondering if there was any, okay, 2 questions. If there's a beekeeping fun fact that didn't make it into the book, and if not, what your favorite fact was about bees and beekeeping. Oh, and number 3, I wanted to know if you keep bees or if you plan to at some point.
I would absolutely love to. Unfortunately, so we moved to Michigan back in April of 2020, yes, the year of the and we the house we got, it's a gorgeous property, and there's a huge backyard where I could totally stick hives, but we have an HOA. And they don't like the bees. I don't know why, because bees are so friendly, but apparently they'll sting the children or something. I don't know. So I can't here, but I would love to eventually. My mom actually, when I was doing all the research and I was like, oh, look at this. This is so interesting. Oh, I love this too. She ended up getting a hive of bees, and then she found out she was definitely allergic to them. So right before she was going to do her first honey harvest, she got stung on her hand and it just blew up. And then she was like, this is really painful and horrible. Maybe I'll have someone else come in and help me with the thing, because I can't even get my hand into the bee glove.
Oh, God.
And then they went to go do it the next day, and she got stung on her arm, and then she had to get rushed to ER because she stopped breathing. So now she has to carry an EpiPen with her, which is great. So they got rid of the bees. They gave them to they were handed over to a very nice local apiarist. So they're doing good. They're thriving still. But so, yeah, I got near that hive, but I also was my mom is usually whatever she's allergic to, I also am. So at the time I was like, I don't want any part of this. But I did get it last week. I went to a local apiarist, and I got to go, because one of the fun things in the book is that you tell the bees events. And so if you're a beekeeper, they're part of your family. And so they need to know all the news that's going on in the family, because they're working for you guys and you work for them, and it's all happy community land and everything. And so I was like, oh, that'd be really fun to go tell the bees about small favors. So my dad was a science teacher before he retired, and his science teacher friend from across the hall is also retired and now keeps bees. So we went out, and I was just totally planning on taking a picture with the bees and the one of the author copies or something. And when I met Bob the beekeeper, who I love, he was like, oh, I just actually 2 weeks ago I treated one of my hives for mites, so I've got to check and make sure all the mite removal stuff at the bottom of the box did its job and there are no mites. So do you want to suit up and go help me? And I was like, oh, yes, I do. That would be crazy awesome. So we opened up one of them, and we didn't meet the queen. I could not find her. I was so sad. We took out 6 of the 8 frames, so she must have been somewhere in the other 2. But we did see we saw the eggs, we saw some pupa and the larva and everything. So the queen, it was very queen, right? The hive was doing good. But then I did get to see one of the facts that I loved in the book. She talks about the undertaker bees, and there are bees that their job and the hive is to take out the dead and dying bees because they want to keep a very clean hive. And they, especially if the bee was sick or whatever, they don't want any sickness to get to the rest of the workers and it could take out everybody. So they literally will just struggle with all these dead bees in the hive, and like they fly them far enough away from the hive that like sickness won't, you know, continue to infect the hive, which I thought was so fascinating. Like, hey, how do you know that you're going to be an undertaker bee? Like who's making the assignments? Because the queen doesn't do that. She's off, you know, laying eggs all day. But there's a really cool book. It's called The Democracy of the Hive. And it's all about how a hive decides these decisions and everything. It's like, okay, well, you're going to be a worker bee for this amount of time of your, you know, your lifespan. And then you go off and, you know, forage for pollen, and then you bring it back. And then, oh, wait, now you take care of the eggs. But there's a whole cycle of bee life. But I got to see an undertaker bee while we were opening up. Bless you. But we got down into the brood box. We took the supers off, which is the big top boxes. And then we got into the brood boxes, and there were undertaker bees like dragging off a couple dead bees. And I was like, oh, sad dead bees. But those are the undertakers. Those are like
cool.
the most metal of all bees. So I was like, that was very, very cool to see. And I think the only fact that I learned that I didn't like figure out a way to get into it is bees, honeybees have 2 stomachs, which I did not know. I don't know why that's fascinating to me, but it is. But they have one for all of their honey stuff, and then whatever they're going to eat. And so they've got like the collection. So as they're making their hive and they're like all the honeycombs and everything, they have like their work stomach and their food stomach. I'm sure there are better terms than that, but I was like, oh, that's so fascinating.
They're so small to have
Yeah, and there was like no way I could stick that in the book. So I'm like, was Ellery doing like little bee dissections? Like, that's weird. So it didn't make it into the book. But I was like, oh, that's really fascinating.
That's so cool. I learned something new.
But bees are like, they're amazing. Like they, it's just like the whole concept of like, because most bees, if they're spring or summer bees, they only last for like 60 days. It takes about 21 days for them to go from, you know, egg to bee. And then they've got about 60 days to chill, and well, no, they're not chilling, they're working the entire time, but they like get all their pollen and their undertaking duties and whatever. And then they die. But they have this like grand scope for what the hive is. And then the queen usually can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And she only ever leaves the nest once. She's born, and then she does her mating dance. And she, you know, mates with all these, like, I think it's up to like 17 different males. And then she keeps all that stuff inside her. So she's constantly refreshing with different genetics. And like, how do they know this? Like, it's mind-boggling to me, all of the little details to create this hive that, like, you know, the spring and summer bees, all they see of their life is 60 days of it. And then the winter bees, because they're not expend energy and stuff, they get to live all winter. So they have a slightly longer life cycle, but like, so amazing. And like, and the queen is not directing any of it. Like, she's just making more eggs. And so like the fact that like all of this bee knowledge gets passed down so quickly through so many very fast generations was like just astounding to me. And I as I was researching all of that, I was like, oh, I can use all of this for Amity Falls, because that's what the community is trying to do. Like, they want to band together for the betterment of their town. And like, in a happy, perfect world, that should be great. And like, yeah, when there's, you know, somebody sick, an undertaker bee comes takes you off. But like the doctor comes in and like helps you and stuff. And it was really fun to see, like, for a split second what that town would look like. And, you know, this perfect utopia of happy family togetherness and everything. And then to be like, you know, just a couple wrong things can make that fall completely apart very, very fast. And so that was really fun to see, like, how awful it can go so quickly.
Humans should be more like these. I feel like, I mean, it would have been not so good for the plot of your book, but I mean, arguably a lot of people would be like alive and happy.
Oh my gosh. Well, and when I was writing a lot of it, like I have to, like, full disclosure, I wrote all of this before COVID. I had, I think, about 10 chapters to go after lockdown started for us. But I was turning everything into my agent. There was the one scene where like the schoolhouse burns down, so like all the kids are at home, like everyone's sick and there's no medicine, so they all just stay home and the elders sick. And my agent was like, maybe next time we write like a happy romantic comedy. Like, I'm not saying you started COVID, but like this is kind of weird.
That is eerie.
So I didn't mean to. If I invented this, I'm very sorry, everyone.
Oh no. I feel like that makes it so timely though. That kind of claustrophobic like community in your world kind of shrinks down. I feel like
and then you've been going smaller and smaller and like how tiny can it get before you just go crazy? And Ellery does at one point and it's so much fun.
Should we move on to questions? I think that we have.
Well, I had a fun lightning round. I thought would be because I really want to know your answers to all of these. So what is your favorite scary movie? Because I feel like you're gonna have a really good one.
The Witch. Actually, but Midsummer might have actually overtaken it at this point. I watched it's my comfort movie.
It's been a comfort movie.
I love it. I watch it every time I'm sad.
That. Oh gosh, I watched that I didn't realize, like I knew it was going to be scary and I knew because it's, Ari, it's going to be, something shocking. But I started watching it when I was flying out to Y'all West on a plane and I didn't know like what was going to happen. And like I had gotten through like the gory part before the plane took off. But then the other part that was really uncomfortable to watch for an extended time while sitting next to a total stranger on a plane. And like they looked over and I was like, I did not know this was going to happen. I did not mean to bring an orgy on the plane. Like, but I'm committed now, so I need to know what happens.
That's too funny. Oh, you're brave to watch that one.
But it was like, I was like, oh, there's all these people. I won't get scared.
What's your favorite?
My favorite movie? Mine is The Others with Nicole Kidman and feline. I can't think of her name, but the lovely character actress. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. I love her. So whoever she is, she's delightful. But yeah, Nicole Kidman and like period dresses and like haunted things and like all of that. But there's a fun fact. There's 10 seconds of the movie, and I've seen this movie probably 50 times. I wrote a paper on it in college. I love this film. But there's 10 seconds I literally have never seen because even though I know what happens and I know exactly what's going to happen because I've listened to it this many times and like I did, like someone else told me what exactly, but like when the kids go upstairs and they're in the armoire and like they're like, oh, the ghosts are coming after us, and they don't know what they don't know, and like the light goes out for a second and all you hear is the breathing. And like as soon as that happens, I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna 10 seconds. I can't see it. So I don't know what happens, but I do, but I don't. I've never actually seen that part.
I need to watch this movie.
It's so good. Like it's like 1940s England, and there's like mist, and the husband went off to war and he never came home, and then he does come home, and the mom's gone crazy, but the kids are weird and they've got like a skin condition where they can't go into the sunlight, and like, oh, it's so good. I love that. It's creepy and wonderful. What is your favorite horror trope? Because you get some good ones and you're the witching.
Honestly, it's like the one that you cover in here, which is like something scary in the woods. Like community has to like stay together to fight against what's in the woods and don't go out there and don't look. But like that kind of vibe. Yeah, I love that. But also kind of like cryptids. We talked a little bit about this already, but like the cryptid, weird kind of like eldritch creatures that we don't fully understand, but somehow they kind of mirror us in a weird way. That I love. Yeah.
Those are always so scary for me. Like the Greys. I can't. Any monsters I'm fine with. The Greys freak me out. My husband loves alien movies, and so like, and I don't mind if the aliens are like monster things or like Star Trek aliens. They're fine. But like the second they have a big head with the big eyes, no, they like, and like the fact that they just, what was the movie, The Fourth Kind, where they like come into their houses and they're like the barn owls. Like
the last few minutes of that movie freaked me out so much. I can't even watch it. I can't even.
I watched like 5 episodes of The Office after that to like cleanse my palate because I couldn't go to bed.
So sweet.
I really, really love like the moment where you're in a book and you're like, oh, this narrator that I thought was like taking me on this nice sane journey has totally lost her mind, and like nothing she said is accurate at all. I love, that's my favorite trope. Like I tried to do a little bit of that in House of Salt and Sorrows with Anna Lee at the end, and like it was so much fun to write because it was like we had this very reliable narrator and now she's like, has she been mad the entire time? Like what? I love that trope.
Yeah.
And I have one last question. What books are on your nightstand right now?
Oh, okay. So I'm actually right now, I'm rereading Wilder Girls because my Roy Powers, I'm obsessed with that one. So good. And I just finished Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, which I was supposed to have read in college. It's so good. So many like one-liners. Like I don't have any tattoos. I'm probably too indecisive to get any, but that book has so many like one sentence, like tattoo-worthy quotes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My copy, like I don't write in books very often, but that one I've got like so many underlined. And I did it in pen too. I'm a monster.
No, I like that.
So many good lines. It's like I am gonna like this one. I just started reading Horrid by Katrina Lino today. I saw the cover. I was doing the signing at Barnes and Nobles earlier this morning, and like I saw the cover and I was like, why, yes, this looks like something I love. And like I'm a chapter in and like it's so good. I love it. And I just finished I'm trying, like, whenever I get kind of writer's block, I go into like nonfiction stuff because it seems to like spark stuff for me. And I'm kind of coming up to a giant case of writer's block on something. And I was like, oh, I should get some stuff from the library. And I found this really cool book on Lilydale, New York. And it's just called Lilydale. I can't remember who the author is. But it's nonfiction. And it's this community of spiritualists. And like the whole town are spiritualists and they're mediums. And they do like, I think some of them do like water dowsing and they do tarot cards. And like in the summer, it's this big, and it started in, I'm going to get the dates wrong. I'm going to say like late 1880. And so it was like when they did the big spiritualism, movement and then after the war, people would come up to the summer and like summer at these really nice, upstate New York cottages and stuff, and then get their fortunes told or, commune with their dead son or whatever. And like it was a really, really good book. And it was fun to just like get into something that was like spooky, but it is because it was real, but I don't know.
That's so cool. I want to move there.
I really want to visit. Like, and there's a documentary. I think HBO did it a couple of years back when I was doing a production of The Medium at Opera Memphis. We watched parts of it. Then they were talking about it, and like it still exists. It still operates and everything. And like, I don't know like how strict they are about like non-medium residents living there, but like most of the town all claim to have, been touched by something.
That's
which is
so
very
cool. Oh, that's amazing. Should we move on to questions? We have 7.
I think so. Whoa, yay!
Okay. Let's see. Which one should we start with? I'll start with Roger because I recognize him from Twitter. Hello.
Awesome.
What books are you happy that exist? Oh my God, I love that. I love that question.
That. Oh my goodness. You go first.
I gotta think. I'm circling back here to The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood because I don't think that I would have written The Year of the Witching if I hadn't read that. That book was just like.
Do you see a lot of like touches between the two?
Yeah,
that before.
That was like an important like cornerstone book for me in like so many different ways, personally, creatively, everything. So that's the one I'm grateful for.
I'm going to go in a completely opposite direction. That's your very nice, eloquent one. I am a huge fan of The Royal We and the sequel, The Heir Affair. It's by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. And it's a retelling. It's not even a retelling. It's a very loosely based Kate and William story.
Ooh.
But Kate is an American and like, it's ridiculous, and I love it so much. And like anytime I get and like just like I don't want to read anything, like I can always go back to that. And like I'm a sucker for royal romances.
So
very
good.
happy. And they just came out with the sequel. They wrote the first one, I think like 10 years ago, it feels like. And then they did the sequel. I think it came out last year. Yes, because it just came out in paperback. And so like it like going back to the characters and everything and like seeing how they had changed. And it was like coming home to this big warm hug of ridiculous rom-com.
That sounds so wonderful.
But it's like the perfect beach read.
I'm gonna look that up. I love a good royal romance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one is for you, Erin. So the next question is, what inspired you to write Small Favors?
Oh goodness. So I knew after House that I kind of wanted to do a very similar format with whatever I was going to write next, where it was kind of like, so House is based on the 12 Bitsy Princesses, but I also originally had started out as a retelling of Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. And so I really liked infusing like fairy tale land and pretty dresses and magic and all that with like horrible, dark ways to kill people. And so I wanted to do something where it was like fairy tale meets terrible demise. And so I was kind of looking through like fairy tales that I had liked as a kid, and Rumpelstiltskin was one that my sister and I had like the old like Jello cassette tape where you like, if you bought like so many Jello boxes and you sent the tops off to the company, they'd send you a cassette tape with like different fairy tales, that like a little audiobook. And we had one that it was Snow White on one side and it was Rumpelstiltskin on the other. And for whatever reason, we loved that like we finally broke it, I think, at some point. Like the cassette film like finally just fell apart because we listened to it so many times. But like the voices were really good, and I loved the idea of like making a promise to someone and like not realizing the magnitude of what you were agreeing to. Like I thought that would be really fun to explore. And then when I decided to stick it in America, like getting to add in all that weird prairie gothic, creepy cryptid stuff, it seemed like a really fun way to spend some hours.
So good. So good. Okay. Let's see. Next question. I'm kind of going through here. This one's from Sarah Murphy. I love what an eerily tight. I love when. Do you want Sarah's book, right? You were telling Sarah has a book, right?
Yes, Sarah's book came out end of May, beginning of June. I can't remember which day now. But Girl One, it's so good. It's like parthenogenesis and like the whole thing with like mothers and daughters, and there's I won't spoil everything, but it's really, really, really good. So it's Girl One by Sarah Murphy Flynn.
I mentioned that just because I forgot the title when you mentioned it earlier. I was like, I want to know what this book is. Part selfish because it sounded really, really good. Her question: I love what an eerily tight-knit community Amity Falls is, and how many specific rules the townspeople need to follow. How did you build up the rules / environment of the village?
The rules were, fun fact, originally I meant them to be 13 because I thought 13 is the creepiest of all numbers. And then I realized if I had 13, I had to write 13. And it was rhyming them. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write this many rhymes, 7, because that seemed like the next creepiest number. So I liked the idea of like a community where like they are each other's everything. And so like there's no government, like obviously they're in the United States, but there's not a government that's ruling over them. They don't really have a police force or any kind of like law enforcement. Like they hold each other accountable to their actions. And so I was like, well, of course they're going to come up with their own rules, because like stuff that, works in big cities won't necessarily work for them. And so I wanted to make them creepy. So I rhymed them. And then as you go throughout the book, so there's a list of the rules at the beginning. And then like whenever a rule is broken or we come to a decision point where like maybe Sam shouldn't have done this, we'll get a little chapter heading to remind us like, you're not supposed to be doing this. And then the atmosphere, I always start with like a Pinterest board because I'm on Pinterest far too much. But I get like a ton of different like atmospheric images, and like sometimes it's like historical research with like the dresses they would wear, or like what the men's neckties would look like, or anything like that. And I kind of put it together, and that usually becomes like one of my touchstones for the book. So like when I get, usually it's around the like 40,000 word point in drafting, I'm like, this is a stupid story. Like, why am I writing this? I'm bored with it. Like, everyone else is going to be bored with it. And then I go back to the Pinterest board. I'm like, no, remember how pretty it was going to be? Let's finish this. And so it's a good like touch point of like how I want the book to feel and look and all of that. And then everything else is just like lots of world building and notebooks and making maps and drawing really badly drawn things of the town.
Oh no, that's so cool. I like how you kind of tackle it from like different perspectives. It's like a combo of like research and inspiration, and you're refilling those wells, and like, yeah. Also, I must admit, I was so impressed with your rhymes for the rules. I was like, oh my gosh,
thank you. I felt like, oh good. I couldn't tell. There was something about don't let false words from your lips pour with damning characters everywhere. I hated that one. I could never get the word cadence to work, and I was like, fine, this is what it'll sound like, but I never could get it quite right. And so I was always like, is someone gonna like ping me on this? And no one ever did. So I was like, I guess it was okay.
Is that the one that ends in keep? I think was something character keep. I was so impressed.
Yes.
I was so impressed that you were able to rhyme that, because I was reading it and I'm like, I'm not sure where this is going, and then you nailed it. Like, you nailed the rhyme. I was like,
yay.
You could make money writing song lyrics. A poet. Okay. Another question. This one's from Marisol. What is your favorite horror book or horror book that inspires you?
Oh, I have a lot. You can see all the bookshelves. These are 2 of 6 in my office right now. We have a lot downstairs. It depends on my mood. Right now, for the book that I'm working on in revisions right now, it's got like a lot of gothic awfulness. And so I've been going back to Shirley Jackson, a lot of Shirley Jackson stuff, because she writes that like super creepy but done so beautifully, and all the sentences are just like heartbreaking because they're so pretty. And I'm so mad that I won't be able to write that sentence because she did it so well. And everyone will know, like, oh, Erin, you're copying Shirley Jackson. So I've been going back and rereading a lot of her stuff. And I'm in the middle of another book. It's called Hex by Thomas. I'm terrible with last names. Thomas someone. And it's about a creepy witch that was murdered in the town for witchcraft like 300 years before. And we actually see it now in modern time. She still is there in modern time. And they've got like this whole very elaborate security camera system. And it takes place in New York. It's like outside West Point. And so like West Point's helping them to like keep this secret, but they like sewed her eyes and her mouth shut. And she just walks around town doing creepy witch things. And so that one was just like, it was really fun to read that kind of horror, because it's got that very gothic, dreadful, witchy, fun stuff. But then it's like, they've got basically like, Grinder for the witch, like, and like these like very weird technological apps and things to like track the witch's movements, and like she's on GPS, like there's just weird stuff going on in the book. And I love it because it's like, it's not like any horror book I've read recently, and because it's like Small Favors, but with apps.
I love that. You've absolutely sold me on this book. I'm going to be picking that up.
It's so good. And like the witch in it, like she's like, the first time she makes an appearance, I was like, I'm sorry, what am I reading? And then it was like, oh gosh, what am I reading? It's brilliantly done.
Sounds so good. My 2, I think, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer is just one that I really, really love. Actually, like Small Favors, I feel like some of the like the imagery that I found myself being like, oh my god, it has that same like cosmic horror-y kind of like, I don't know, eldritch vibe. So that, of course, I don't know, Small Favors, in my heart it feels horror, so I want to like say this is one of my favorites too. It has like that, it feels true to horror. It's definitely horrific. I was gonna ask like if you considered it more fantasy or more horror, kind of both, but
I in my heart, because I'm a scary lover at everything at heart, it's horror.
I feel like it's horror.
It's got this beautiful, pretty cover, and like I was a little nervous when my editor sent the cover over at first, because there wasn't any of the smoke. It was like all just pretty flowers, and they hadn't put the bees in yet. And I was like yes, these are flowers, and I like them, and they're pretty. But I feel like this is like the book my mom would have picked up for me in high school and told me to not read Stephen King and put this on my shelf instead. And then the second they added the smoke, I was like, yes, this is the ominous, creepy, dreadful flowers of my dreams.
I love it. It's disarming. Because I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be something a little lighter, a little more.
Lighthearted.
Like, I know. I love it.
Like that second to last chapter. Nothing cheerful happens in that.
I have a question from Damian Jackson. I know that House of Salt and Sorrows is based on a fairy tale. Would you ever write a sequel or companion book to it? Ooh, I don't know the answer.
I would love to do that. So Arcania, I don't know that I would do a sequel because I feel like Annalee and Cassius like had a big old grand adventure, and I really feel like they need to like go chill at the lighthouse, do some laundry, maybe catch up on some Netflix, and like live their little happy, lighthouse keeper lives. But there is so much of Arcania, and like part of the thing I loved about it was like when they're going and visiting all these different places in the balls, or are they? But like getting to explore like parts of the kingdom that weren't necessarily like on in Salon and like on Sultan and everything. There's definitely like more parts of the kingdom I would love to explore, and I really liked the world where it's very, kind of Victorian-esque, but like there's gods walking around. So like, I think that would be really fun to explore, like in a different character setting and different character arcs and things like that. But yes.
That would be so cool. Okay. I think maybe just one more question, maybe, because looking at the time.
Sure.
We'll see what we can squeeze in. I love this question, though. This is actually from Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. Thank you so much for hosting us. It's an amazing question.
Yes, thank you.
What role would you have in a beehive? Would you be an undertaker bee?
I don't think I would be too squeamish, which sounds really funny considering some of the awful things I write. I think I would be too squeamish to be an undertaker bee, because I'm assuming bees also get grossed out by their dead, but maybe not, because they're very particular about them. I don't think I'd be the queen, because that seems boring. I would like to be like one of the field bees, I think, and like go around and like do all the flower stuff. And they have like, they've got little dances that they tell each other, like when they found like a really good like flower field, they live like different pollens and whatever, and they'd like do this little dance to like let you know like you guys should go this way. I think I would be really good at like traffic control for the bees.
Love that. Before the queen, are they just called queen's attendants? Like, I feel like they don't do too much work. Like a queen midwife.
There's the worker bees. There's the drones, which are the dudes that like didn't get to go and like hang with the queen on her maiden flight. And then there's the field bees. And there's like there are attendants, and one of the cool things about the queen, like if the hive thinks that she's not doing a good job as a queen, they can like mutiny and like cast her off the island, and they will attempt to make their own queen. And it doesn't really work because they're not like able to do that. But you can tell when a hive is upset with their queen, because you find these like, so there's like the super frames, like the beehive frames, thing. And there'll be like these weird globs of honeycombs that come off, and they're always empty because they can't lay eggs themselves. But they will try to like make a queen, or raise one of the eggs to be the next queen. If they feel like the queen's dying, or she's sick, or she's just bad at her job or whatever, they can totally mutiny, which I think is very, I can't even imagine like the conversations that go on in a beehive.
I felt like one of those bees. It'd be like a rebel bee, like a mutiny bee, and just like, she's making us work too hard.
Way too hard. Oh my gosh. I just want to go out in the flowers. Let me just snip the flowers.
Oh man. Okay, let's see. What do you think? Do we have time for one more, or should we?
I've got time if you get time.
Okay, let's
do one more
until they kick us off. Oh,
okay.
They're kicking us off.
They say one more or kicking us out. Sorry,
one more.
One more. Okay. Let's see. How about what scene or section brought you the most joy or satisfaction to write?
I don't remember the specific title because like right at the end of my last revision, we retitled everything or we redid the numbers on a lot of stuff. There's a section that happens after Christmas. And Eller's having a dream sequence, which is not a spoiler at all. But like lots of things happen in the dream sequence. It starts out very like romantic and lovey, which was kind of fun to write because we don't see a lot of like soft, happy moments with her and Whitaker because like they're, you know, fighting for their lives for a good portion of the book. So I got like a really nice romantic moonlight stroll with them and everything. And then it all goes terribly wrong. And I love writing when the things go terribly wrong. And like the weird stuff starts to happen and things that you think are something are not. And then some ghost things might come back and then we might see some villains. And like anytime the villain gets like on-screen moments for me are always like the most fun to write because it's like all the lines always come out. They get like the snarky fun dialogue. And so it's just like, it's always such a dream to write the things. And like the same thing with House, like Kosamaras and Discardi. Everything they wrote, it was like first, like the way you read it is the way that I initially wrote it. Like they very rarely ever get their stuff edited. And like, I find their villain dialogue is always the best.
I heartily agree. Those are my favorite scenes too. I was going to say like two favorites are, my main character going to the woods, having her first encounters with the witches.
That was so scary. Oh my gosh. I had a nightmare that night. It was like a good night. Like, but like, it was definitely, I was in Bethel.
Those are my favorite. But I like anything like, I think the reason that's the thing you're talking about in your book that I liked it so much is like the romance combo, and then you get a little spooky too. And I'm like, this is everything I need because I'm a big romance and horror fan. And when they get kind of combined, favorite part. Yeah.
She is.
I know. Well, unfortunately, we are at the hour mark because as I had a feeling, Erin and Alexis, it has been beyond a pleasure to get to listen to the two of you talk about all the amazing things and all the amazing bee facts that I agree with Tiffany. I did not know I needed in my life, but that have truly made it better. Also, I'm just like, so when is the next bee novel coming out now? Is it going to be a series where you have bee-inspired drama like novel?
Actually, I have one more book recommendation. If you guys want more bee facts, there is a book. It came out in the 1800s. It's called The ABCs of Bee Culture, and I don't have it in grabbing distance for me, but one of like the original copies of it, and it's got this really gorgeous, like it's about that big bee in gold, like stamped onto the cover, and like it's all embossed and it's hardcover, but it's by an initial Root. I think it's like HR Root, I want to say, or HJ Root, something Root. But it's still in print. I believe they've updated it many times, but like all of the information in it is still good because beekeeping's been going on for thousands of years, and bees can do what bees do. So like, but it's got tons of interesting facts, and like it's got pretty end papers. So like, it's just the best of all books.
That sounds amazing. Oh my goodness. I'm like, I wish to go read that now. But before we wrap things up though, I have one final question. Well, two final questions for y'all. And that is there anything that you're currently working on that you would like to share with us? And also, where is the best place that people can follow you or find you so that they can stay up to date on all of the awesome, fun, and dark things that you have going on?
Do you want to go first, Alexis?
Sure. I was trying to remember my Twitter handle. My Twitter handle is Alex H. Writes. So you can follow me there, or on Instagram, I'm Lexis H. I'm working on like 3 things at the moment, and I don't think I can four maybe. Well, I don't think I can talk about any of them. But I can say that's like I'm experimenting a little bit more with genre and age category, so that's cool. Some new stuff for me.
I need to hear more about this later when we are not live. So I am penchant 4 with the letter, or the number 4. I'm a writer. The letter 4, penchant 4 words on Instagram and Twitter. And then I just joined TikTok. So if you guys want to watch me make a fool of myself with some videos, I'm penchant 4 spelled out FOR because someone took my handle. Don't know who yet. They haven't posted. But penchant 4 words that's spelled out over on the TikTok. And I'm terrible at it. So please come and give me tips and recommendations because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I've got a couple projects in the air right now. I can't officially talk about any of them, but the one that I'm really excited about, I think it's my weirdest thing I've ever written. There's a lot of like science and stuff involved, and like I full on like brought out my like old AP Bio textbook because I was like, I don't remember how like any of this works, and should probably, if I'm gonna write about it. But I'm calling it like the Manchurian Candidate, and the line from Ghost where Whoopi Goldberg says, "Molly, you in danger, girl." Mushed that together. That's the book.
I love it.
Very specific.
That sounds absolutely amazing, though. But well, I am so excited to read not only what the 2 of you have out, but also everything you've got coming, because you guys are just awesome, amazing writers, and thank you so much for spending the evening with us. I know I appreciate it, as well as our readers. Everyone, Small Favors is officially out and in the world. Exactly, yes. So make sure you check out, appreciate the creepy smoke on the cover and how it adds that exact right touch to it. And make sure you also go and check out The Year of the Witching. So
yes, you will love it.
Yes.
And thank you so much for hosting us. This was like the best night.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us.
It was honestly such a pleasure. So we'll see you all next time. And everyone, make sure you go hit the purchase book button. Bye. Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a good night.